go ahead and pull your outline from section 4.2. The first part of your outline says that you're going to be reading pages 180 and page 181. So go ahead and go to that page and read through that first part, and you can see the kind of problems that we're going to have. We're going to have proportions. So let's just go on to the next page where your first definition is. And the first definition is your cross product method. And it says, notice that the unknown term can be in any one of the four proportions as illustrated by the four parts of example 1. So we're going to go over here and look at example 1. And if you notice in this one, we've got the missing y, we've got a missing x on this side, we've got a missing t here. What this is saying is the missing number can be anywhere. So we're going to solve the proportion using the cross product method. And in order to use the cross product method, step 1 says find the product of the means or the product of the extremes, whichever does not contain the unknown term. Divide this product by the number that is opposite the unknown term. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to take the two numbers that are across from each other that don't have the letter in them, and we're going to multiply them and then divide by the number that is with the letter. So let me just put those problems on a piece of paper for you so that you can see them. So let me turn to page 180 in my book, and I'm going to go through and we're going to start with example 2. So let me pull up a new piece of paper here with a new section, and we've got example 2a is 5 over 6 equals 55 over y. So what you're going to be doing is you're going to take the two numbers that don't have the variable in them, the letter in them, and you're going to multiply them. So I'm going to say 6 times 55, which equals 330. And I'm going to multiply these two. When you multiply a number times a letter, you just get the number and the letter. And you're always going to divide by the number sitting beside the letter. So what happens is on this side, 5 divided by 5 cancels and you're only left with the letter. And then you take your calculator and do the 330 divided by 5 and you get 66. So the answer to this proportion is 66, and this was the original. So if I put 66 in there, I can check it. And remember, proportions are equal if when you multiply, you get the same number. So if I do 5 times 66, I get 330. And if I do 6 times 55, I get 330. So we know that we're right if that checks out. So let's take a look then at the next one. We'll do one more. You can pause the video and work these as you go. This is example 2b, where I have 5 over b equals 3 over 4. So again, I multiply the two that don't have a variable, multiply the two that do have a variable, and then I divide by the number sitting beside the variable. So I get b is equal to 20 over 3. And if I put 20 over 3 in my calculator and try to reduce it, let's just pull up that calculator so that you can see it. If I put this in my calculator, it will reduce it for me. So you want to make sure that all your fractions are reduced. So if I go ahead and I put that one in there, let's clear out what I have, and I put my 20, I hit my fraction key, and it's going to open up a place for me to put the 3. If I hit enter, if it needs to be reduced, it will reduce it. If it's already reduced, it will just show up the way it is. So if you will take the time to put these things in your calculator, you will get them reduced and you won't need to do anything else to them. Let your calculator do that. You are also going to be doing some word problems. So again, let me pull up my paper here so that we can look at that. And we're going to look at example 3. And example 3 says, it's on the next page. Example 3 says, if 4 cans of cola sell for 89 cents, how much will 12 cans cost? And on all of these, what you want to do is you want to be consistent. So when I look at this, I see my 4 cans and I see a price. And then I see 12 cans and I'm missing a price. If when you set these up, if I put the 4 cans on the top on one side, on the other side it needs to be cans. And notice it says that in your book, it has cans on top on both of them. You can notice on the bottom, I have the money on both of them, and the money is in cents. So if we set that up and we're consistent, it's going to set up a proportion just like what we were doing before. So I think of it this way, just looking at this. I've got the cans on the top on both of them, and I have the cents on the bottom on both of them, and I'm missing the cents, so I put my question mark there. And this can look just like the others that we had, and we can put an X in there instead of a question mark. And now we see that it looks exactly like what we were doing. So we could do 12 times 89, which comes out to 1068. And we could do 4 times X, and then divide both sides by the 4. So 1068 divided by 4 comes out to 267. Now this is where we have to be careful, because in our problem, it's in cents. So this is 267 cents. And if you had 267 pennies, you would have $2.67. So this would end up being your final answer, $2.67 for that problem. The main thing in all of these is whatever you have on the top on one side, you have to be consistent and have the top on the other side. Whatever I have on the bottom, I have to have the same thing on the bottom. So if I'm looking at example 4, and again, this is page 182 in your book, it says, if a 120-mile trip took 8.5 gallons of gas, so I've got 120 miles on the top and 8.5 gallons of gas on the bottom. It says how much gas, so on mine I have the gas on the bottom, that's the gallons, so I don't know how many gallons of gas will be needed for a 240-mile trip. So you notice I've kept everything consistent. I've got miles on the top, I've got gallons on the bottom, so I can write this just like I had before. Notice this one has a mixed number in it, so you are going to want to use your calculator, and I'll pull that up too. I'm going to do 8.5 times 240, so I'm going to take, and I'm going to punch in my fraction key, my mixed number fraction key. Notice I hit the green key and then the fraction key, and I just put this in the boxes, so 8 1/2. I use my arrow key to slide over so that the whole fraction's there. And it's 8.5 times the 240. And your calculator will do any reducing that you need. This is not a fraction, it comes out to 2,040. So I go back to my paper. 8.5 times 240 is 2,040 equals 120x. So I take my calculator and I divide by 120. So 2040 divided by 120 comes up to 17. So what this tells me is that I would need 17 gallons of gas. Instead of 8.5 gallons, I would need 17 gallons for my 240-mile trip. And you're going to need to learn to set all these up as your proportions. Example 5 is your next example. It's on page 183, and it says if property tax on a $65,000 home, so there's the price of your home, is $416. There's your tax. So I've got home on the top. Sometimes I make myself a little note so that I know where everything is. It says what is the tax on an $85,000 home? So I'm going to put $85,000 on the top. I don't know the tax. Notice they're lined up. Tax on the bottom on both of them. Then I just solve my proportion by doing 416 times 85,000. And I get 3536 and 4 zeros. And then 65,000 times x is 65,000x. Divide both sides by 65,000. And I end up with a tax of $544. So that's how this one would work. So you need to make sure that you work through all those examples and that you pause the video as you need to. You're now ready to practice. You could work through some of the problems in each section on page 183. So if we're on page 183, what you're going to want to do is you're going to look at problems 3 through 11. 3 through 11 is simply writing proportions. So If I looked at one, if I did maybe number 4, it just says write a proportion for each statement and then solve the proportion to find the value of the variable. So 6 is to 8 as x is to 24. It's in order as it goes, so you would do 6 times 24 and get 144 equals 8x. Divide by 8, so 144 divided by 8 gives me an answer of 18. So that's what you're doing in that section. And then 15 through 47 are just basic proportions that you'll be solving. So if I was looking at number 16, I have 1/5 equals 3 over x. This is exactly what we've been doing. So 3 times 5 is 15. 1 times x is 1x. And if I divide both sides by 1, I get x equals 15. That's what you're doing in those. And then in 49 through 59, you have the word problems. So if I were looking at number 50 actually says, if you can read a 120-page book in 4 hours, so there's my pages, there are my hours, how long will it take you to read 150 pages? I'll put the pages in the same place that I put them before. 4 times 150, again, use your calculator, is 600. 120 times x, divide both sides by 120, so 600 divided by 120 comes out to 5, so it would take you 5 hours to read that book. So this is what you're doing on all these problems. Make sure that you do some of the problems and check your answers in the back to make sure that you understand, and then follow through with the next set of lessons that you have and the next set of homework that you have in your lesson.